Good afternoon, guys. Leslie at Inskeep Bakers. Don't have a whole lot to show you today, but we did step over this fence here. Do some planting yesterday. I planted our cherry tomatoes in these sort of kind of raised beds. So here's our 4 grape tomatoes and our Sweet 100 cherry tomato. And probably when I plant the other tomatoes I can kind of show you how I do that, but I wasn't getting the camera out last night. Pretty much I probably should take this one off too, but pretty much I take off all the lower stems. I dig a trench and then I lay what was in the container, the seed container, is probably about here, and the stem goes up this way, so it kind of lays down and then bends up out of the dirt. This touching the ground, probably should take it off, but we'll kind of see how it does. But then they will grow roots all the way up that stem down to the base, and it just makes for a stronger plant. So that's how I did those. And then I don't know if you guys can see through the screen or not, but there are the 6 spinach plants that we bought from the greenhouse, just like that one. There are the 6 spinach plants that I ordered from Azure, and then I planted some sweet potatoes here. I can try to put a picture of that in. I believe I took a picture. So if you plant a sweet potato, you don't get sweet potatoes. You get what's called a sweet potato slip. So basically, kind of like an eye of a regular potato, you get a plant that grows up. Well, then you have to take that plant and plant that into the dirt in order to get sweet potatoes. So as those hopefully start to come up, I will show you those. And then in this one, this is my attempt to kind of keep the cats from digging this stuff up. We'll see how it works, but I didn't have anything to put around the tomatoes. I have, I believe it was 2 rows of those cherry, I think they were cherry bell radish, and 2 rows of the French breakfast radishes that we ordered from Azure. Then I put in, I think it was 2 rows of carrots and 3 rows of just a leaf lettuce, like a salad mix. And that comes to about this point, so I can add more radishes and carrots at this end, and then I will probably also plant some stuff, lettuce and things, around those tomato plants. So I need to water those again. I should have done it earlier, but it just didn't get there. And then I planted our other rhubarb plant that we got from Azure there. So it's pretty much the same size as one that I planted last year. I'm hoping this one perks up and grows a little bit better, and then we have our established one over there. So I'm just going to go through and try not to completely soak the plant with the sun beating on it. And this is why I should have done this earlier, just so that the sun does not essentially cook the plant. But in the few years that I've been doing garden, I always end up soaking the plants, and I haven't had a whole lot of issue with it. It's part of the reason that I want to do the drip irrigation, because then we're not soaking the plant where we can cause powdery mildew and things like that, but I get what I get, I guess, for now. So, same thing, just gonna go through and water where I put all the seeds in. And until things really start to grow, I'm just going to try to stick with kind of this mist. My watering wand with the kind of shower head on it. I need to get a new adapter for. Jason went through and put a bunch of quick connects for me, so I don't have to spend so much time connecting and disconnecting hoses. We water part of it from the house and then part of the garden from a hydrant, so sometimes it can be more of a pain to water than it really should be. Again, if I get my irrigation set up, should be a little bit easier. Come out, turn it on, go do my chores, come back and turn it off a little bit later. I do still have what do I have? Kohlrabi and kale that I need to plant somewhere. I really kind of like that to go out into the main garden, but I'm still debating on where to put that, since I'm trying to kind of redo a bunch of it. I don't want to go planting anything where I may have to move it. Hose doesn't quite reach as far as I would like it to. And these I want to try to make sure I water where I trenched that whole stem. And then we'll go over and take a look at the garlic beds. Shut the water off. I haven't gotten any more work done in this garden area yet. I'm pretty confident after digging around and looking in some of these garden beds the other day. I don't think my garlic is going to come up. Pretty sure bugs and lots of good stuff in here. But I'm pretty confident that I hadn't dug this one yet. All of my garlic just rotted. Dug through a couple of the other beds, and the only thing I could find was rotted cloves. So I guess we won't have garlic to harvest this year. That's fine. I will plant some other stuff here and use it for something else. You win some, you lose some, and this year garlic wasn't our thing. Well, on the opposite side, our onions are coming up like crazy. I have to go through kind of each row and count them, but it looks like almost everyone has come up. You can probably see the kind of more defined rows of them now. So I think on today's project list is going to be, other than harvesting some more asparagus, getting some hay that the goats have wasted and trying to get some of that spread on here. I'll have to kind of try to lay it between them now that they've come up so far and not fold them over. So it's going to be a little bit harder now, but now is the time that I have to do it. And I think we will also try to get some put on here. I've got a few more weeds to pull again, and try to get this mulched with some leftover hay as well. It looks like our elderberries are doing well. Looks like they are starting to bloom, blossom. And I planted these just from a bare root last year, so this will be our first year with any elderberries. I don't really expect a whole lot, but looks like they're doing pretty well. This one doesn't look like it's doing quite as well, but it looks like most of it died off from last year, and I still need to get that trimmed back. And then still need to take the second part that's over there. I think I'm going to move it probably to this one next to it. Our blue crop blueberry has got a few blossoms on it as well, just in these end of these two little branches. Goats were out yesterday and Jason had the fence down, so Gemma ate part of this branch, but considering that blueberry and this sad looking blueberry are the only ones that have made it, I'll take the few blossoms. Okay, today we're going to do something new. I have a bunch of different ingredients to put together to make a fertilizer recipe that I had found online. I guess it's from Steve Solomon. He has a book called The Intelligent Gardener, and he's the founder of the Territorial Seed Company. So what I found was, he calls it the Complete Organic Fertilizer, and what it consists of is soybean meal, cottonseed meal, bone meal, kelp, fish meal, lime, gypsum, and feather meal. So basically, what I've never used this before. Normally we just buy bags of fertilizer, but I'm not trying to do organic. I'm just trying to find something without all the extra stuff in it, I guess. The recipe consists of 3 quarts of a seed meal, so like soybean meal, cottonseed meal, canola seed meal, and then it says you could use feather meal or fish meal. So a combination of any of those, and from what I read, the best combo is a combination of oilseed meals, so soybean meal and cottonseed meal, and then you also add feather meal and fish meal, and then you add the bone meal, kelp, lime, gypsum, and then it calls for, you can add, it's an optional, potassium sulfate. All I have is potash, which is just the potassium. I don't have any sulfate, so I need to do a little more research and see if I can add that and some sulfate, or if I need to find just something else altogether. So we're not going to add that today. But this is what I found, and most of this I ordered on Amazon. Some of it I got it from the local Ace Hardware. But soybean meal. Here's my cottonseed meal. Bone meal trying to smash my plants. Bone meal. And I think I could have ordered all of this stuff from this company, but this is what I found locally. I already had kelp. I feed it to the animals. It's in the pig feed. I feed it to the goats and stuff like that. So I use an organic Thorvin kelp. And then I already had fish meal because I put that in the pig feed that I make. Here's my lime. It said a fine ground ag lime, but I believe this is the same thing. A gypsum and my feather meal. So what I'm going to do is, I believe this should make about 1.5 gallons, like volume wise. So I have a 2-gallon bucket. My lid doesn't fit real tight, but it'll be sufficient. I'm going to put it in this when I'm finished so it's easy to carry around. If I remember right, it said this one batch that we're making does 100 square feet. So it doesn't cover a whole lot compared to what I have in garden space, but I'm going to just put it in this tub to mix. This is one of my potting soil tubs for making soil blocks, so I'm going to just set that kind of down here to dump everything in. Okay, I don't have a great way to set this up out here, so I'm just going to do it off the side of the table. So I'm going to add 1 quart of kelp, 1 quart of soybean meal. Maybe I better pour this in here because I'm probably going to make a mess. Quart of cottonseed meal. That smells good. I don't think I've ever even seen cottonseed meal. See, what else? A pint of fish meal. Pint of feather meal. Kinda almost smells like the fish meal. looks like sand. Let's see, we've got soybean meal, cottonseed meal, feather meal, fish meal, kelp. We need a quart of bone meal. That one stinks. Pint egg lime. So I think this is like pelletized instead of fine ground. Okay, I just did a quick double check, and the egg lime is the same thing as garden lime. So we're going to put a pint of egg lime, or garden lime, it's the same as egg lime. Make a mess. Now I'll have to compare that to, say, like the barn lime. I'm not sure what the difference is between the garden lime and like the barn lime I use. I know that's essentially a crushed limestone, whereas this is not a white rock, like a brown. And then a pint of gypsum. And I'm just going to try to mix that up. So there should be a total of about, what do we put in? I think it's 6 quarts. Six quarts of fertilizer for 100 square feet. Must be a chunk from the cottonseed meal. I believe the instructions were just like any other fertilizer, to spread it on to the ratio that you want and work it into like the top 1 to 3 inches of garden soil. If I can do this without making a mess. So there's a start. To the fertilizer. First batch. See if we notice a difference this year. It's going to be kind of hard to tell though, I'm sure, because a lot of the garden beds are going to be changing. Alright, I'm going to show you guys how I do my soil blocks. This year I picked up some of this Miracle-Gro potting mix. If you could do a seed starter, you wouldn't have to do this first step that I'm doing. Typically I prefer this Fox Farm Happy Frog. It's a little bit faded from being outside all winter. I had a pallet with a bunch of bags on it. So basically I dumped some of my soil into this bin just so that it's easier to get to. And like I said, if you had a seed starter, it wouldn't have as much of the chunks and, you know, bigger pieces in it, so you wouldn't have to sift it like we're gonna do here. What did I do? Okay. So basically I dump it just into this bin. It's easier than trying to get it out of the bag every time. And this just has a 1/4 inch hardware cloth on it. I don't know, it's just a really rough frame with the cloth kind of stapled to the sides of it. This was my grandma and grandpa's, so I'm not sure how long ago they built it, but I ended up with it and it's excellent. I love it. So I just take a cup of this and I just use the cup to kind of move it around. You could use your hand. If I had something larger like a wheelbarrow, I could shake it. But since I'm just doing soil blocks, I don't need a huge amount. Anything that does not sift through, I push to the side, and then I end up just kind of a tray of this, and I can take this out and just dump it in a garden bed somewhere or throw it out in the yard, whatever I want to do with it in the end. So, gotta get a decent amount of this to make some soil blocks. I'll show you my soil blockers. I have 2 different sizes. Typically I only use the larger one because pretty much everything that I start is going to be in that block until I plant it out in the garden. I don't start in the small one. I may, I told you guys I'm behind on starting everything. That was why we bought tomato plants, but I'm going to start some celery, I think. Probably a little late for it, but we'll make it work. And it starts as such a tiny little plant and it takes forever, it seems like, to grow to where you can put it out. I think I will try starting that in my small blocker this year because I can get a lot of plants in a smaller space. Okay, that should be enough to get us started to begin with. And this is the Miracle-Gro potting soil. So there's our dirt we're going to use, or soil we're going to use. So these are my soil blockers. This is the larger one. I think it's 1.5 inch square, but I'm not 100% sure. So what it does is it packs the soil in, and when you press it out, it has a divot in it. I think you guys can probably see that. And that is where you plant your seed into, and then you cover it up. And I also have this smaller one. I don't think either one of them says what size it is. but this one does 20 little, they probably look like 1/2-inch cubes. So like I said, anything small or tiny little seeds. I've started some herbs and things in these before. But I also put them in different size trays. This tray essentially is not really great for these. You can put, what, 4, 8, 12, probably about 20 of these in here, which isn't bad, but they're not very deep compared to the depth of this. So I like to use these for my smaller ones, because then I can still cover them with like saran wrap to get kind of a greenhouse effect on it. And then for these bigger soil blocks is these trays that's what I had shown you guys that I had started already, because they can set down inside of there as well, and I can put more in a tray. So now what we're going to do to make the soil block, and like I said, if you buy seed starting mix, you can skip the first step and start right to here. I just put a bunch into another tub. You could put it directly, you know, into here to mix. Okay, I had to find my water. So we're going to take the smaller tray that I have here, and basically you want to soak it, mix, you want it wet, but you don't want it sloppy wet. Basically, you want it wet enough to stick together, but not so wet that it falls apart. Put just a little bit more. I did have some dry patches in there. Okay, so basically what I'm going for is it'll clump together, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see it on camera, but when I squeeze, I can get a few drops out, but it's not just pouring out of there. That's the messy part. That's my favorite part. So then you just take your soil blocker and kind of rock it, and kind of twist it, and make sure that it's packed in fairly tight. And you want it basically flush with the bottom. And then once you get them made, you want to take your soil blocker and basically you hold down on the handle and you pull up on the blocker, and that kind of keeps it compact so that you're raised up, your dirt is there, and then you lift this off. So you have indents where you can drop your seed into, and then I just take a little bit of my sifted soil and sprinkle on top of each one. So basically I'm just going to repeat that to fill the whole tray, and it will kind of compact into the bottom of your tray or your pan. Again, press down and lift with your fingers. And there's another row. Some people will separate them a little bit. If you get something that grows really fast and a lot of long roots, you may want to separate them just so that they don't intertwine together as the roots grow. I prefer on most of my things to keep them relatively tight because then they don't dry out as fast. But that will all depend on what kind of seeds you're sowing. I was using these smaller containers because normally I do this in the living room just because it's not usually this nice of weather when I should be starting seeds. But because we're later in the year, I probably could just be doing it directly in that bin that I sifted to. So I'm just going to continue doing the same thing over and over and fill this whole tray. Alright, we're going to finish off this tray. I've got one row and then I just need 2 blocks. So I just made 4 and dropped them out in the pink tray. Then I can just pick them up, set them in here, and then I'm going to make one last batch. And put them as the last ones in our tray. And then we have a full tray of soil blocks that we can go ahead and plant. Normally I just stick a piece of tape on the side of the tray, but I'm doing them the opposite direction and kind of splitting things up. So I just put these tags in for each of the things that we're planting. So I'm going to start with this zucchini. Normally I do like green machine and things like that, but these are all seeds that I got at a local fair last year. The Farm and Fleet stand was giving away free seeds. So they are all last year's seeds, but we'll see how they germinate. They were free, so I won't complain. So, Ricardo, I can't plant seeds with you on my lap, sir. So I'm just going to, Ricardo, put a seed on each one. And then we have this yellow squash, zucchini, basically. I don't know that I've ever, can't say that I've had yellow squash, but I've never grown yellow squash. Usually I always have a heck of a time opening these types of packets, but usually we just stick with the zucchini squash. I thought it would be fun to have a little bit different color when we make things. Might have to open all these packets and then come back when I get them all open. This is a pain. So this is the early prolific straight neck squash. And we're going to do 5 of those as well. Usually when I plant stuff, I take a picture of it so that when I lose a couple of these labels. They fall out when the cats takes them out, or who knows what. That as long as I have a couple of them at least in there, I can go back and tell what was what. Now this is kohlrabi seeds that I had ordered from Azure, so this was not from those free seeds, but these are the early white Vienna. So we're gonna do, I'm going to put 2 in each spot, so we'll have 10 of these, and then I can split them out later. I think I got 3 in that one. When I plant them in the garden, then I can separate them. Then I have early purple Vienna kohlrabi. Again, I'm going to do 2 in each. Okay, got all my seed packets opened. So, for the first time last year, I grew tomatillos, and this is the kind we're going to put in. These are from Jung Seed, and I only have about 10 left, so I'm going to do a whole row of those. If I have any extra, I'll probably just drop 2 seeds in one of the blocks. Oh, it's gonna be perfect. 10 seeds. So last year was the first year I was actually successful with tomatillos, and I used all of them to can salsa verde, and it was excellent. And we're gonna do mammoth table queen squash. This is one of our favorites, acorn squash. And where does that go? Oh, I guess I've only got 2 here. So since I only have 2 blocks, I'm gonna go ahead and push another seed kind of in the side of it. I don't have a whole lot of garden space that I want to give to stuff that vines out so much, and I've got the table queen, I've got butternut squash, I've got spaghetti squash, then I also have cantaloupe and watermelons and another squash that we've never done, so I guess I need to get my garden, the addition, finished on it so that I have room for all of this stuff. So we have a Waltham butternut squash. Grew butternut squash for the first time last year, and honestly I had never eaten it before, and it was excellent. So we're gonna put 4 of those in. And we always have an issue with squash bugs, squash beetles, I'm not sure. I don't know why, but my GoPro likes to just turn itself off sometimes, and it's really annoying. So I'm not sure where it shut off, but I'll have to go back through seeds once I get them all planted and Just make sure that you guys see everything we've got in here. Of course, I'm just rambling on and I don't know what it recorded and what it didn't. So next one is Blue Hubbard. It's another one that I've never done before, but I've heard that it's really good. So we're gonna do 3 of those. And then the last one in this tray is Sugar Baby Watermelon. And we're just gonna do 3 of those. So I don't know what it recorded and what it didn't, but I was saying that we always have an issue with squash bugs or squash beetles or whatever they're called. I'm gonna go through and kind of push some of these larger seeds down in. So I'm doing just a few now, and then hopefully the plan is to do a later planting for a fall planting when we shouldn't have as much issue with those insects. Now some of these squash seeds are to be planted a little deeper, so that's why I'm just trying to kind of push them down into the block without splitting the block. So I guess let's just go through real quick what I planted, because I'm not sure what it recorded and what it didn't. So we did 3 Sugar Baby Watermelon. We did 3 Blue Hubbard Squash. We did 4 Hearts of Gold Cantaloupe. We did 4 Spaghetti Squash. We did 4 Waltham Butternut Squash. I only had 2 soil blocks left, so I put 2 in each of this Mammoth Table Queen. I did the tomatillos. We had 10 seeds left, so I did a whole row of those. I don't know if it recorded me talking about making salsa verde last year and canning it or not, but it was a big hit. Early Purple Vienna. I had 4 blocks and I put 2 in each. Early White Vienna Kohlrabi. Same thing, 5 blocks. I put 2 in each. This Yellow Spaghetti Squash, we did 5, and 5 zucchini. So I'm going to set this to the side for a second because I need to sift more soil to put on there. Excuse me. And I was going to do these tiny blocks in celery, but I couldn't find my celery seeds. I must have used them all, so I need to get another packet. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and put leeks in there. Leeks is something that I've never had, but it's very similar to an onion, so might as well as try them. This is another one of those free seed packets that I got from Farm and Fleet, so we're going to go ahead and put them in here. So these say that they're supposed to be planted a 1/2 inch deep. So no, Joe. All I need is you running through my trays. Wouldn't be the first time he's done it. Chase the cat through my trays for those pepper plants and herbs that I've got in the sunroom. Okay, these are basically like an onion seed, so that's just what I wanted to check. And they say they need to be planted a 1/2 inch deep. So I just went and got a pencil, and I'm just gonna kind of put a little bit deeper hole in each, because these little ones don't, it just barely kind of puts a dimple in them. And even sifting the soil, it didn't, in these tiny little blocks, it still didn't work very well. And I really, if I'm going to use the small blocker, I really need to either have a finely sifted or just a seed starting mix, because these, any sort of chunks in these tiny blocks just doesn't work very well. So these will probably end up kind of falling apart and becoming one big chunk in there. But that's okay, because once they start to sprout, we can just kind of grab them like an onion and separate them. So I think there was, I did 20, 40, 60, 65 blocks. And I'm going to try my hardest to only put one seed per block. See, now I'm recording it so I can go back when I forget which blocks I've done and watch to see where I dropped a seed and where I didn't, because I'm good at that. And that's how I end up with multiple seeds in a block. I would much rather have multiple seeds in a block than just completely miss one. Especially these, because they will be very easy to separate, or I guess to thin. That one got 2. That one got 2. Alright, I think I got them all. So that's the leek seeds. They look just like a regular onion seed. So I'm going to sift a little bit more soil and then I'll show you sprinkling that stuff on top. Alright, so I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of this on top. Again, these small ones are a little bit harder to do. If I had celery seeds, I probably would just kind of barely dust it like that, but since these are leeks, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more on there. I don't think they grow anything like the onions I've grown. They won't have any sort of issue popping through there. And then I'm going to go ahead on all of these. Just put a little bit on top and then just lightly press it on there. These large seeds, since they're supposed to be planted deeper, I'm not too worried. I might even leave a little bit of a mound. And then I have just a little sprayer bottle that I will water these with. And these I'm going to put just a little bit less on there. So it's that simple. I like these. I like making the soil blocks. I don't have to worry about all the plastic containers. I mean, I'm going to be buying dirt to fill those anyway, so might as well do this. I mean, not a huge fan of plastic trays, but what else am I going to use? So I can use these year after year. I'm not sure how many years I've had this. My soil blockers, I'm pretty sure it was something we got on Amazon. If I can figure it out, I'll try to put a link in the description of what I have or something similar. And let me go find my water. We'll probably take them back in the sunroom and then we'll water them back there just so they're a little bit lighter. Well, this is what I use for watering seedlings. I can put it kind of on a mist and I don't have to worry about completely flooding the seeds out or knocking the plants over. Bianca won this last year, showing in her FFA show for the goats. So here's our leek seeds. Kind of hard one-handed. It's full of water, so usually I kind of hold it with one hand and spray with the other. Basically, the soil blocks were already wet from making them, so I just want to make sure that that soil that I put on top is saturated. And I was just thinking, I'm not sure if my dome will fit on the top of this with my seed labels or not. I may have to kind of lay them somewhat sideways. And I know all this this stuff's not gonna, it's a little lighter, but all of this stuff's not gonna germinate at the same time. Normally I would try to plant things together that would germinate in the same amount of time, because I don't want the dome on, you know, once they get so big you don't really want the dome sitting on them, but at this point it's just kind of, it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and water. This is all of our herbs that we had started. All my labels are on the opposite side, so I think these are basil, parsley maybe. Still no cumin coming up. Dill, lemon balm. I think these are both cilantro and these are both thyme. They were still wet this morning, but I did turn on a fan just to kind of blow the seedlings around, kind of like if they were out in the wind, then they don't get as tall and spindly. So that is drying them out a little bit faster. And these are our peppers. I'll go ahead and water those, and then I will get a dome on here and probably a piece of saran wrap on there. And then I wanted to show you guys my Meyer lemon tree is getting some flowers. Nothing on the line yet, but this offshoot branch of the lemon is starting to bloom, so I'm excited. Okay, all the seedlings are watered. Dome is on our tray we started. Saran wrap on our leeks. Fingers crossed, everything starts to sprout well. Oh, I just finished with all these seeds. It's about 82 degrees, and I could not figure out what the noise was while I was up on the deck doing seeds. Well, apparently Jason knows that I was out of cracked corn, so he's milling corn for me. Excuse me, kids. What are you guys doing? Joseph? Where are you supposed to be? Jason let some of the big goats out, and now kids think they can just follow them and do as they please. Typical goats. Well, that's it, guys. Have a good day. See you on the next one.